Welcome to Autism Knows No Borders, a podcast where people connected to autism inspire change and build community. Together with the Global Autism Project, I'm your host, Rachel Harmon, a professional with over a decade of experience in the field of autism services, outreach, and advocacy. Do you struggle with expressing love for others, whether in friendships or romantic relationships? Do you ever feel pressure to live up to unrealistic ideas of love as represented in the media? How would you describe your own relationship with yourself? If you'd like to hear about the many facets of love, particularly in the context of autism and neurodiversity, stick around for today's episode. The following roundtable about defining love was facilitated by Global Autism Community moderator Bob Schmus, and it features autistic self-advocates Hattie-Angelys and Adrian Sanchez, as well as community member Danielle Terrell. Among other things, they discuss personal definitions of love and its various forms, challenges of expressing love, the impact of media on perceptions of love, self-love as a foundation for healthy relationships, the complexities of love in neurodivergent communities, wanting versus needing someone, respecting differences in relationships, accepting one's own autism, and love from parents to children. In this episode, discover what's possible when you love yourself first. And now, I present you the Global Autism Community.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our roundtable of the Global Autism Project's Autism Has No Borders. Welcome to our February roundtable discussion. My name is Bob Schmus. I'm a moderator here at the Global Autism Project. I am an autistic self-advocate. I am also a mental health therapist with a history of advocacy work within the autism community. And I'm glad to be discussing our topic on defining love. And now I lead you to Adrian.
Hi, my name is Adrian Sanchez, and I am an autistic moderator currently from North Carolina. I am also an IT specialist and currently studying behavioral health and understanding human behavior on this community.
And I am Danielle Terrell. I am also a part of the moderator team with the Global Autism Project community. I've been working in the human service field for the past 8 years. I have a master's degree in developmental disabilities with a concentration in applied behavior analysis and leadership and advocacy. Very excited to be here this evening.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So I say before, the topic that we are talking about today on our roundtable discussion is defining love. Love can mean a lot of things. It can mean like romantic love, platonic love, love of an idea, love of family, love of friends, all about love, especially within the month of February. So with that said, let's discuss one of our first questions. How do you define love?
I think it's the amount of appreciation that you get from one person that's usually shared between two people. And if the same amount is not reciprocated, then it's just incompatible. And it helps you define who your friends are. And it's also defined what your family is supposed to represent as well.
Very good. Thank you so much, Adrian. Yes, it defines who you are as a person.
Yeah, I think that also everyone can define love differently. Sometimes, like you were mentioning, it could be love in a romantic way with a partner or a significant other. It could be love for something that you're extremely passionate about. Maybe you have an emotional or spiritual bond with that. It could also be self-love and the growth that you find within yourself throughout life as you're coming across different obstacles or different chapters of life. It's a feeling. It's something that I think we are born with, whether it's the mother and child bond, something that's coming from the outside world, something from your environment. And it's something that we carry with us throughout life.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say it's something we carry with us throughout life, because life is filled with a lot of lessons. like lessons in school, lessons in work, lessons with family, and all these lessons like make us who we are, and we keep building them even all the way through adulthood. And learning about love is part of that. Learning about how the love that we gained, the love that we lost. These are very important things to really think about in regards to love. And it actually leads us to how we feel about love. So that leads me to my next question, like, how do we express our love? Like, how do we do that to express love? Like for me, for instance, I express it different ways, like spending time with family, spending time with my wife, expressing romantically with my wife, just all those things to really represent love.
Good point. I definitely feel like there are different versions of love that need to be used for different groups when it comes to gaining appreciation. And, everything just needs to be reciprocated back and forth the right way. It changes with every age range. It helps to just be casual around friends and family. Obligation to love a family member can take place, but accepting them for their honorable selves is still a factor if they show the same love back. Emotional attachment forms the more time that is spent with close peers, with intentions made clear because of the amount of time spent, with loyalty as a friend, too.
Yeah, that friendships, I think in a way are overlooked when it comes to love. Like there's always like love of family and romantic, but friendships can be love, especially friendships that can last forever and that can last for a lifetime.
I definitely feel like love can be a bit of a challenge when it comes to making friends and romantic relationships compared to what you're showing for your family and the ones who already know your true intentions too. Do you feel like there are more challenges to getting friends and relationships and meeting new people compared to the challenges and just showing the same love with friends and family that already know your intentions?
Well, I think it really always depends on like who we meet. Sometimes like in our life, like of course we have friends we grew up with since we were young, and family, of course, but when it comes to gaining new friendships and gaining new romantic relationships, it's always, I wouldn't say hit or miss, but it's always something that takes time, and you never know when that's going to happen. Like it's like a meeting of chance. And what I mean by that is that you never know who your next new friend's going to be. Or if you're looking for a relationship, you never know if it's going to come quickly or it'll take some time. Of course, it would depend on how your comfortability would be.
Comfortability, you mean like the right environment for it?
Yeah.
I think also with being comfortable, it's building a certain level of trust too, and how you express yourself around people that you trust. It may be harder to express your feelings with someone that is new in your life or even a new relationship that could be developing. I also think it was interesting that you brought up love and loyalty earlier. I think that's very interesting because I think that love can be those emotions, those feelings, affection, and maybe loyalty is where the commitment comes in, and even to yourself, being committed to loving yourself and giving yourself grace, or a commitment to a romantic partner, or maybe a caretaker loving relationship. I think that loyalty is something that can definitely come up when you think about love and commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely bring in a good point with that because you never know who you're going to see. Also, when we think of love, it's the first thing that we see regarding love. One of the first thing is through like television and movies and books and novels, just really that representation of love. And we're very much impacted regarding that. So how do you feel you've been impacted by the representation of love in TV and movies? And do you still feel impact from that?
I definitely feel like there are some differences between real life and the stuff you see in fiction. For instance, I don't believe that there is love at first sight because it usually takes time to actually build that love in order to show the true intentions over time. So yeah, it definitely helps to just like build friendships before going on to romantic partnership that you're seeking afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes, if, like I said before, it depends on, like, it should be at your own pace when it comes to love. Because you don't want to rush in when you don't feel comfortable or you don't feel like you're ready. It always depends on, like, if you feel you're ready for that relationship. Because when we see things on movies and TV, it's like kind of like, in a way, not purposely, but in a way, like, it kind of like creates like this status quo of, you have to start being romantic at this age. You have to be married at this age, and when in reality, it really depends on how you feel inside.
Yeah, definitely. It shouldn't be rushed. And one thing I can say is that when it comes to romantic partnership, it calls for having attractive qualities. The intentions can be made clear without scaring the other person off, so it takes time and psychological techniques. Putting in the right amount of effort, showing intent to find a romantic partner can be a challenge because it can't be no more and no less. After long term upbringing from family, new standards need to be taken for consideration in order to have values for domestic partnerships. Otherwise, bachelor lifestyle will last longer than the average time span. I mean, it's pretty free when you think about it, but oftentimes, if you're not putting in the right effort to find a romantic partnership, well, then loneliness can possibly increase too.
It's interesting you said bachelor life for more than the average time. And also to Bob, what you said about timelines. And I think that society, especially when it comes to media, there definitely is a expectation for people to do things at a certain time in their lives or a specific order. But that has evolved and changed throughout the years. I mean, back, I don't know, the 40s, 50s, 60s, people were getting married at 18. And if you weren't married at 18, you'd be considered an old maid if you weren't getting married and having kids right away. Or women who weren't pursuing careers because they were choosing the life to be a housewife or expecting that's what I'm supposed to do next with my life. So I think that the media definitely has an interesting impression on people, but on the other end of things, I think that there are some great love stories that are produced and that they may give people hope in finding their Prince Charming or finding someone who embodies a certain character. With actors, celebrities, people who have been part of different movements, we have idols and people we look up to. And I think sometimes that does come from romance movies or rom-coms, or, you think of my future husband is like this character because of these qualities. And maybe that's what you look for in real life. And being able to talk about those expectations, are they realistic? I'm absolutely one for you should never settle. So, if you do have a certain criteria of what you're looking for, stick with that if that's what, your heart believes in. But having a support system because it is hard and dating could be challenging and discouraging. So I think having a community of love and support while you're looking for love, if that's what you want, is also really important.
Definitely, because we're, like you said, we like, these are things that we've learned, that we learn about, like, for instance, from like Disney movies to rom-coms. Like, this is something that we've learned from, that we've gained as a society, giving us an example of what love could be.
Mm, yeah, definitely. We all want to feel like princesses and we all want to feel like princes and we all want to have those attractive qualities and but the thing is that attractive qualities are the ones that are at first sight and love usually evolves over time. There are values to how that involve having qualities to create positive change in the other person's life. If you have a special skill or hobby, share that for emphasis to spice things up. And the same love can be reciprocated back. That can be hard than what you give out. So it definitely helps to have that compatibility. Love can feel absent and it can still feel like that for anyone who is cast out. So it helps to have attractive qualities to earn appreciation back from friends and outside peers. One of those is loyalty.
Absolutely. Loyalty goes a long way. Like when it comes to having a relationship like that, it's about being loyal to someone. And, there's going to be some road bumps around down the road. But you know what? As long as you try your best to be loyal to that person, or no, being loyal to that person, it goes a long way.
Yeah, loyalty, common decency, and showing that you care will help. And it's also important that to love yourself before loving others, because if you feel bad, then you might be carrying around some dark energy with other people to judge you. So it definitely helps to just, show love for yourself and for everybody else too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Hello, Rachel here. Would you like to share your own perspectives by participating in roundtables like this one? Join our online Global Autism Community, a safe and judgment-free space where all kinds of people connected to autism regularly discuss important topics. For example, we're about to have another roundtable about stress management. And as each month approaches, we vote on which theme to discuss next. We'd love to see you over at community.globalautismproject.org and let us know what you think about this episode. And now, back to the roundtable.
I think that's such an important thing to discuss, self-love, and how do you find love for yourself, and some of the things that you were just mentioning, Adrian. So maybe if that's where we can continue the conversation. But before we get into the details of that, Angelys, if you want to just introduce yourself and give us your definition of love, and then we can, after your introduction, we'll pick back up on that conversation around self-love.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Danielle. I appreciate pausing for me. I'm Angelys Fox. I'm a behavior analyst in New York. I'm a neurodivergent community member at Diagnosed Autistic, and I am also a mama to two humans that are also neurodivergent. I think love is a deep and abiding connection to another, and what that looks like is really defined by the relationship that it's occasioned inside of. But it is respect for yourself and bringing forward the best of yourself inside of that relationship to show respect and dignity to the other person you're connected with. And that really can be expressed across so many different ways and so many different types of intimacy. And I think they all bring a beautiful and important aspect of the human condition and human existence into the world that share love in healthy and supportive ways.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think self-love is so needed in life. It's very needed in life because in order for us to love others, we have to love ourselves. And loving ourselves can be very hard because we live in a society where instead of loving ourselves, we have to be very critical of ourselves. It feels like we have to be very critical of ourselves. It's okay, we can learn from our mistakes, learn, okay, how can we be better in ourselves? And that's necessary too. But I think we overlook the fact that we also need to love ourselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we're not all perfect, and we should just take responsibility for actions, but not let that get in the way of loving ourselves too. I mean, we can all imagine that everyone else has flaws, but at the same time, we can love them for what they have for their own self-love as well.
Yeah, I agree, gentlemen. And I definitely hear you guys both speaking to the importance of self-growth, self-awareness, identifying areas in which self can be improved, but also that importance of self-acceptance. And again, I think that also comes into boundaries, right? So knowing yourself, right? I think it's impossible to truly love something or someone that you don't know. And so knowing who I am, what I'm capable of, where I have areas that need supported or support, where my limits are any given day or specific condition. Like as I gain more understanding of myself, it's easier to bring grief to myself. It's easier, not easy, but easier to ask for help or to offer my skills without feeling as though or taking responsibility for someone else's feeling of me being really good at something that maybe they're not as strong at, but reminding them that they bring strength to the table too. And so that complex self-identification, then self-awareness, respect of my own limitation, and giving myself grace allow for improved love of self and instead of criticism. I remember one time in therapy, a clinician said to me, like, when you're not sure, when you feel like your words are unkind to you, like, pretend you're somebody else that you love and say what you would say to that person.
I love that you mentioned therapy, because that's exactly what I was thinking of when I think about the journey that I took for self-love, and therapy is a huge part of it. And I'm really grateful that I had some friends in my life that helped me find a therapist that was right for me. And I think that there's a lot of different ways to discover how to find love for ourselves and appreciation for ourselves and being our authentic selves and loving who we are in our own skin. What about books, or, are there any other ways outside of therapy that anyone has experienced, or as a professional, anything that anyone's recommended?
I mean, there's tons of ACT workbooks that I absolutely love, and I think that they help with so many aspects of noticing your inside world, as well as your external world, accepting the components that are changeable and not, putting in, understanding your values, even if those values are momentary, and then engaging in a committed action that's aligned with those values based on the factors that are really occurring around you. And what comes to mind that I know is readily accessible is the DNAV workbook, and that's actually, it's written for teens, but strangely enough, I really like teen workbooks for adults who have busy lives, because I find that it distills the most critical components down into tangible and workable small units at a time. So, it might be like, read this 2 or 3 paragraphs, and then here's 3 or 4 questions to help you reflect on the most critical points that we're coming across in those 2 or 3 paragraphs. And so it's a DNAV workbook, and it's for teens. And I love it. I love working with young adults with it. I love working with adults with it. And it's based on acceptance and commitment therapy or treatment, depending on whether or not you're coming from the psychology lens or the behavior analytic lens. But both of those grew out of behavior analysis. The founder of acceptance and commitment treatment or therapy is Dr. Stephen Hayes, who was himself a behavior analyst. And our literature just wasn't at the point of being open to publishing private event stuff yet. So he published it under his other certification, which was as a psychologist.
Thank you for sharing that. I was also just thinking that earlier we were talking about the media and movies, and I think a lot of times we also get pressure and expectations from our families or from our community. And I think it's important if you're on the journey of self-love, we have to put all those expectations from others aside, because I think that we are the only ones that can define what love means to us. I'm the only one that can say how I love myself and what I love about myself. And I'm the only one who knows my own personal life experience. So when it comes to finding a significant other, being in a long-term relationship, I'm the one who's going to define what I want in my life. And there's also a difference between wanting and needing. Do we need love? Do we want love? And how do we define that in our lives?
What you just said right there, Danielle, is amazing. It's what we feel we need in our lives. Like, it depends on us when it comes to like having that loving relationship. I mean, starting a loving relationship, it depends on what we feel we need to make that happen. Not one size fits all, what we need.
Bob, that makes so much sense. And it really brought me to what Adrian had talked about with us in the Moderators Forum earlier this month of like really understanding a bachelor lifestyle versus partnering, and where anyone is in that specific journey, as Danielle said, is really personal. And both have their complexities and both have their benefits. And I think that that we have to caution ourselves to not have grass is always greener. When you live solo, your home is yours and your objects stay where you want them under the condition that you're comfortable with, under the terms that you have set. And there really isn't anyone's right to say something over that. When you partner and you choose to cohabitate, there's a lot of negotiation and finding middle ground and coming to a place of understanding. And yet, it could be lonely for some people to choose to live solo at all points throughout their adulthood. And it can be, very comforting to have something that the day has been really hard, but you're going to go into a very secure, intimate relationship. And so, there's upsides and there's downsides to all of it. And, it really is, what do you want? What do you need? And then matching that to somebody else if that's appropriate for you.
Yes, exactly. Very much so.
Yeah, that's definitely great. I mean, it's best to emphasize your blueprint and express what you like in order to find the right people in the process. It's definitely more comfortable than just pretending to just like the same things that other people like so they can like you back as well, because that would just increase more pressure. So, as far as the other things there, you should just try to love yourself too. I mean, your family appreciates you for that as well, and you might as well find some people outside of that circle who can give the same appreciation back too.
Yeah. And so many of these things, I think, come out of adolescence and to some degree, modern society's adolescence, right? In that we enter these spaces where our brains start to develop a little bit more, maybe show the desire for more intense connections around those teen years. And some of the pressure for expectations is coming from people who also haven't done any of the more complex things, had more, sophisticated conversations or whatever, trying to get information and learn how to have more intense and embedded connections from people who don't have the skills themselves. And so there becomes a lot of appliance behaviors, a lot of acquiescence, a lot of I don't play with Legos anymore, or I no longer care about American Girl dolls. I loved American Girl doll. I loved her very much. Or whatever. I've left my childhood behind. And I'm more mature and everyone else who does X, Y, or Z is a baby. And we start to have these things where we're saying them out in community and we damage our own self-love knowing that no, I'm not. I love my art, or I love my downtime, or I love my drawing, or whatever it is. We start to do those things to ourselves. And I'm lucky as a homeschooler, I get to interrupt it for my kids, and my kids have it, their friends have it interrupted. But I don't know if on a larger social level we do that either. Teach appropriate, healthy love of self, of others, the dignity, the respect, the ability to set boundaries, but also to respect other people's boundaries. I think these things come from our childhood and our teen years and our early adulthood, and without support or guidance, it's harder.
Yeah, support and guidance for sure. Mentorship.
Yeah, mentorship is very needed. Very needed because we're guided along when we're children, but we still need that mentorship as adults, because it can be a confusing world as an adult, especially as a neurodivergent adult.
Definitely. It always helps to have some guidance with close peers, as well as with family too. I
think the funny thing is, I think we're all talking about community, right? There's skills that each of you bring to the table that I don't have. I just don't have them. And they're not my passions. I probably will never have them, right? And so in that specific skill area, any of you might play the role of mentor for me. And then there's skills that I hope I bring to the table that maybe are foreign to some of you. And I get to play that role back. And that give and take is, I think, what occurs in healthy connections and forms the basis of loving friendships, which is the basis of loving more intimate connections, whether it's best friends or partners or, significant others, whatever. But it's a give and take, it's an exchange, and our community and our world is so isolated.
And I think having other people's perspectives can be helpful, because sometimes we're in a situation, a relationship, a friendship, and we have blinders on. And having an outside perspective can definitely help. If it's a social situation you've never been in, ask questions, lean into your community, the people that you feel safe, and just, hey, I want to have a conversation about this interaction I had with my best friend and talk about it. Don't keep it inside.
That's a good point. I bring it up to my kids. If anyone that they like, if they're ever in a situation where everyone else that they trust is saying this situation is bad, it might be time to put things down and listen. You know, if you say you trust me as your mom and my best friend as an auntie, and I don't know, this friend, that friend, and all of us are being like, I don't know about doing X, Y, or Z, or I don't know about that person. Like, it might be time to be like, the whole world's not wrong. I need to hear something.
Definitely.
Also, one thing I do want to discuss is expressing love when others have very different opinions. Now, has this ever happened to you before?
I mean, for me, absolutely. People have had other opinions about what my relationship should look like. For me, I'm in an interracial relationship, and there was initially some strong opinions about whether or not culture and background, lived experiences and belief systems would be so different that we couldn't find common ground for connection. And I think that those are valid concerns, but also concerns that meant that the people weren't paying attention to how my significant other were partnering.
Yeah, absolutely. Like sometimes, like for me, when it comes to love, if you really, as long as there's respect on different opinions, I still think you can still have that loving relationship despite having different viewpoints, as long as there's, a respect for each other.
100%. And I think that that's a really great way to summarize what I was trying to say. It's not that when I say it's valid, like, yeah, absolutely, backgrounds and cultures and all sorts of lived experiences can make connections more or less likely. But I don't think that they're the guiding point for whether or not a connection will succeed or won't succeed. It's whether or not there's mutual respect and commitment towards finding the common ground necessary to build the future that the people inside of that relationship want.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And I think when it comes to building our future, it doesn't necessarily have to be with someone. If you are in a bachelorette situation, maybe that is your personal preference. Maybe you prefer to be alone. Maybe you're more introverted and you have a certain amount of energy and space to socialize. And again, that's defining how you want to live your life and how you define love.
Yeah, bring that forward, Reed. Everyone can partner differently. I mean, people might choose to partner and not cohabitate. People might choose to not partner and not cohabitate. People might choose to cohabitate and be differentially partnered, right? In that two friends might choose to live together because of economic reasons, but neither one of them wants to have a significant other. They want much more independence in their life and lifestyle. So I just think there's so many ways that someone can have a healthy, respectful, mature, adult, loving life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% with that.
I was just saying, you gentlemen choose, like, for yourselves, what if ideals were there, or like, are there struggles where you feel like you would want something more, or do you say, like, I've made conscious choices? Like, I look at my life and I see struggles and I see conscious choices and I see the reasons I'm making them, and I see my values reflected, and so I'm comfortable with what's going on.
Yeah, I definitely see like those struggles are the different, like wanting those validations, and sometimes it can be hard. Like validations shouldn't be forced, but just really they can be needed when we need them the most. That answers your question, right?
Yeah, to a degree. I think the answer is whatever you want it to be. I don't get to describe what your reflection on my words are. That's part of our friendship. I like you for who you are, and whatever it is you say.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best part of it.
Right?
If you guys don't mind, I had a conversation today with a parent, and I think that it's a conversation that I've had before with parents, conversations that I've heard from other parents. So if anyone wants to share their perspective or even some advice, what about love when it comes to either being diagnosed yourself or having a child who's diagnosed with autism. Because the conversation I had today, a parent said it took me a while to accept my child's diagnosis. And I think that love is part of that. Again, we've talked about acceptance in our conversation tonight. So, is there any personal stories you want to share or advice when it comes to either a diagnosis or any really life-changing event, finding the love in a new part of our life?
I can definitely share about that, but I'd like to make space for the gentleman first, in that I'm both a parent and diagnosed, and I work with parents of newly diagnosed children. So I've also had this conversation a lot. So I think that regardless of all of us moving in a space where the autistic neurotype is really common, and we are aware of the wide breadth of ability and disability that can exist in one human, regardless of their dominant presentation. You know, they may be overall a high masking human or a low support needs human or high support needs human, and none of that tells you anything other than a general idea. That's still not the normative experience. And diagnosis itself is just a title, right? Like, it's just a word, and still doesn't really tell you much about it. And yet for all of us, or at least from my experience with interacting, we understand that being autistic is literally a description of a human aspect. It is the way my brain is made and wired. It is part of who I am, and I am never able to divorce from it. I could not label the title. I can walk in a room and never say autism or autistic, but that doesn't change that who I am, ever. And I think that those complexities are what comes to the forefront for parents like that. So this title, autism, this word, which really describes symptoms that were able to be identified and therefore qualify for a diagnosis, I feel like that word is what the parents are reflecting upon, because that word is very much tied to high support needs humans who may never have a degree of whatever, or who may, it's who may never have. I think that's just stop right there. And that's a fear for parents. As parents, God willing, and, the order of life willing, we will not outlive our children anymore. That is not what society says. Like, it is highly likely that my children will walk in spaces I will never see. And they will do things I will never see them do. And they will accomplish things that I will not be there for. And I love that. But also, my ability to prepare them for those experiences is what's going to leave them more or less prepared. My ability to expose them to how to have trusting relationships, how to find love of themselves, how to offer themselves compassion and grace, and so much more is going to walk with them for their entire existence. And it's an honor, and it's a blessing, and it's a privilege, and it can be a burden. And any factor that makes it harder can bring up a lot of fear, nervousness, sadness, and just like heavy emotions, especially if you don't have the experience that the autistic neurotype is just a way brains are made. And that doesn't tell you where someone's going to end up in life. It doesn't tell you whether or not they will or will not partner. It doesn't tell you whether or not they will or will not complete standard academic education or more sophisticated academic education. It doesn't tell you if they're going to speak with their voice or not. It doesn't tell you anything about their future potential. It just tells you that there are signs, a diagnosis tells you that there are signs that their brain is made differently. And amongst one of the ways, just one of the less common ways that brains are made. And so my experience is that the parents who go through this process, this very complicated process of acceptance, are going through it oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, with a large amount of heavy emotions that they're working through. And the only experience or exposure to the word autism, because it's usually not the word autistic, it's the word autism, is maybe a character portrayal in a movie or a TV series or something along those lines that often portrays, even when the life is advanced and sophisticated, it's lonely and isolated. And while that's not an uncommon component of the experience of many adult autistics. It isn't the only experience of adult autistics. I am aware that I walk with privileges. All of us are amongst the, very small percentage of autistics who are gainfully employed. I am also an autistic who is married, and I know that is my marriage, regardless of any other qualifier in my life, is a privilege, but it's also an outlying privilege for many individuals who share my neurotype. So I don't see these things lightly, but yet and still, it does not tell you when a child is diagnosed, it does not tell you what their future will hold. And yet parents are trying to grasp at this word that is now being used to define their child without knowing what it really means, without the professionals being able to say like having brown eyes or blue eyes or hazel eyes or the very rare green eyes. So it's having an autistic neurotype. And even if we could say that, even if we had those words, that still doesn't mean that all of the other experiences the parents have had connected to the diagnosis are not flooding in and creating heavy emotions that they have to work with. And they have to work with it about the most fragile part of their life, their child.
That was beautifully said. Thank you so much.
Very well said. Very well said, Hattie.
Beautifully said.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I mean, it's hard. You bring home this tiny person who, they're perfect and they're beautiful and they're untouched by hardship of life, and yet, you're gonna make mistakes. As a parent, you know it. It's not a question of if, it's when, and it's gonna taint this tiny perfect bundle. And yet, there's also, we all work with imposter syndrome. The first time we do something, I remember thinking, how in God's good name did they think it was a good idea to send me home with this tiny, perfect human? I'm only a certified educator, a behavior analyst married to a paramedic. We are, between the two of us, my husband's person is a baby safe haven, and I am the person who helps babies who needed a safe haven. I don't say it to brag, but I say it to say, even with all of that real, we were terrified. And we face things that still terrify us. And so that part of your life that is going to throw curveballs, that is going to demand things of you that you might not be prepared for, that if you had a magic wand, you would create glittering rainbows exactly the way they wanted. And then there's this word that is confusing and scary or 1,000 other things, and you don't know what to do with it. And it touches that person, that perfect person. It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. It touches that person. And you know what? It also shows what we can bring to the table. And it shows that love for that person, no matter, even though it's something so new in our lives, showing one bit of that love goes a long way.
Oh my gosh, it really does. It really does. I mean, it's one of the things that I do say to those parents back. I often say, the person you are looking at today with this new label is the same person you held yesterday who made your heart swell. They haven't changed. You just know something else. And you're going to keep knowing something else. You're going to learn their favorite color and their favorite shape and their favorite animal and their favorite thing to do. You're going to keep learning who this person is while they keep becoming who they're meant to be. And it doesn't take away the big emotions, but at least it helps the parents often feel seen and heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty good, Angelys. It's like you're carrying a magic wand and making your children's lives better. You should be lucky.
I try. I get a lot of it wrong. I'm a person too, and I get overstimulated and I get overwhelmed, and I try to go and have distance or privacy or, Danielle's been exposed to one of my children, and he's amazing, but he's also does not stop. It is like what she saw from the moment his eyes open to the moment they close, and he resists them closing. And so I'm tired all the time, and I'm doing a lot of things because I want to and I have to and I need to. And some of those things I'm doing for my kids, and they're making them harder because I'm asking for space and they don't want to. My kids know, I will say, do not talk to me unless there's an emergency. And one of the conditions of an emergency is something on fire? Are you on fire? Am I on fire and somehow don't know it? If the answer to all of those is no, you don't have an emergency. And my kids laugh at me every time I say, like, am I on fire and somehow don't know about it? Because if the answer is I'm on fire and I know about it, we don't have an emergency. I am fine with it. I will deal with the fire. And you say those silly things as a parent because, like, it's hard to get a moment. It's hard to get a moment to breathe. It's hard to get a moment to regulate yourself. It's hard to get a moment to deploy strategies. You know, I can know all of the right things, but in the moment when I can't find my keys and I'm going to be late to work and they have a need that I tried to address an hour ago that they fought me about, it starts to become a little bit much too. So I try to get it right, but I know I don't. And I know I can't always.
That's all right. They still see you as their hero. You got everything taken care of.
Absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen. Kind of had a hard day, so I kind of needed that one today.
I'm so glad you joined us, and just all these discussions really bring up feelings of love, but they bring up just so much light and energy. And I think that our community is such a wonderful space, and these monthly discussions are a safe place to have these important conversations and sharing the good and the bad and the asking the questions and the inspiring stories is really what keeps us going. So thank you everyone for showing up here today, sharing your love with our community and our listeners. If there's anything else anyone wants to say before we wrap up, any final talking points or closing remarks?
I always want to say I cherish and adore and do have a love for the admin team and the moderator team around here. You're correct. It is a safe and accepting and wonderful community where I get to share being myself and hear people's experiences being themselves and be supported and offer support. And it is that bilateral exchange that for me underpins healthy, loving interaction. So I appreciate all of you.
I have to piggyback on what Angela said. You know, the moderator team, we bring so much to the table and we bring so much to our community. And I love doing this. Let's keep going.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I'm glad of what the community is made of when appreciation is shared between one person to another. And I really think it's important that we should love ourselves and before we love others, and everything gets reciprocated back. So yeah, I'm glad what we all stand for here.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that from everyone.
Amazing.
Thanks for tuning in to Autism Knows No Borders. Are you a self-advocate willing to share your story and educate others? Or a professional seeking to hear directly from autistic voices and improve your practice? Or maybe you're a family member hoping to support and empower your loved one. Whatever your connection to autism is, we'd love to hear your takeaways from this episode in our online Global Autism Community, where hundreds of people from all over the world come together to support each other and know that they're not alone. Join us today at community.globalautismproject.org. Let's work together to transform how the world relates to autism. Thanks for listening. Take care.